All right, so I've had the XSR 900 for about 2 weeks now. I've put about 200 miles on the bike, and it's still an absolute blast to ride. I've done a few different modifications to the bike, and I thought I'd break these videos up just into a few since I'm doing all the mods pretty quickly. And again, since this bike has been out for a few years, I really have the final look and most of the mods already in mind. But wanted to highlight two things that I've done to the bike because one I think is the coolest aesthetic mod that I've made, and the other is the most practical one. So first wanted to talk about this carbon fiber. This is from Motocomposites. I reached out to them and they put together this package for me that included these tank covers, which I think are absolutely beautiful. The weave of the carbon fiber is gorgeous. They're also designed correctly, so they're coming at the same angle on both sides. Also the headlight bucket, the radiator guards on the side, these rear seat flanks, and the hugger. But again, all of the carbon fiber having the exact same look, and it looks very, very clean. Usually you can't do carbon fiber on a tank because you can't make, or at least I don't think it's easy to make a carbon fiber tank. So typically you would wrap a metal tank with carbon fiber. In this case, so the original pieces were aluminum and they're just covering a real steel tank. So to take this off, there's just 3 Allen bolts and 2 plastic pins on each side. You take those off. This comes off and these covers just slot off. It's a very easy installation, and all of these carbon fiber pieces took me about 30 minutes to put onto the bike, but again, I think really transformed the look. If you followed my channel, I'm a huge fan of everything carbon fiber. I don't know if I own anything that I don't put some carbon fiber accents on. And again, it's mostly for the aesthetic. The tank covers may have been a little bit lighter than the aluminum ones. The other side pieces that were out of aluminum, again, maybe saved a little bit of weight. The rear hugger was plastic, so was the headlight bucket, so the carbon in that case is probably a little bit heavier. But again, I just think it looks really cool. And I'll get some pictures of me riding the bike around. I've thrown a couple up on Instagram that I took during the day. Again, just with the fact that it's usually only on the weekends that I can get out during light hours to do any filming, means that I'm spending most of the time in the garage. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this. Again, I only have a couple more mods coming before I consider this bike finished and just spend some time riding it. But I really like the way that's coming along. So the other modification that I did, which again I consider more practical, was the Lust lowering link. So I installed a 20 millimeter lowering link from Lust Racing, based out of the UK. It was only $100. And I had been on the fence about whether or not I was going to install it. I put 150 miles on the bike before I put the lowering link on, and I made all the different adjustments that I can to the stock suspension. I, at 150 pounds, put the preload all the way down to no preload, and I tried different settings with the rebound, and it got a little bit better as far as standover height as I put the preload all the way down. The bike overall is still, the suspension is pretty harsh, particularly for a light rider. I may actually look to change the suspension at some point. But the standover height, I was really on my tippy toes, barely getting to the balls of my feet. Even with my riding shoes, just barely on the balls of my feet. And while once you're riding, that doesn't matter because your feet are up on the rear sets and everything feels comfortable. There was just a level of confidence there coming to a stop and being able to confidently control the bike while you're waiting in traffic, particularly stop and go traffic. And I did have a couple of instances where I was at a stoplight and somebody braked a little bit too hard, and it's that awkward feeling where you weren't expecting to have to catch yourself and you do, and you're kind of fumbling around a bike that, at least for me, is pretty heavy. Again, I caught it, but on a rainy day, or if I happened to catch an oil patch under my shoe, the bike probably would have gone down. And again, while it's likely that I would be able to manage it, it's just that confidence. And I think for motorcycle riding, like a lot of sports, like golf, as soon as you get into your own head and lose any of that confidence, other things start going to hell. So I think from a safety perspective, for me, that was the biggest difference. And also now riding the bike with it lower just a little bit, it feels completely different from that confidence perspective, and for me that's all the difference in the world. So the rear went down by 20 millimeters, and at the same time Lust Racing recommended moving the fork tubes up through the triple tree between 12 and 14 millimeters. So I split the difference and did exactly 13 millimeters to keep the ride neutral. If you don't make an adjustment to the front, the steering will start to get very slow. If you make too much adjustment to the front, it'll get twitchy. So again, it's important to be very precise in those measurements. But having put first about 150 miles on the bike in the stock configuration, and then doing about 40 miles since then. With the lowered configuration, the bike feels completely neutral. I'm not the most aggressive rider, although I have tried to ride aggressively both right before and since making the adjustment, and I can't notice any difference in the steering or stability of the bike. So I really recommend for riders my height, 5'8", with a 30-inch inseam or shorter, that if you're considering making the modification, to just do it. It's extremely simple. There's two, I think they're M10 bolts with 14mm head and nuts that you just jack up the bike, pull off the old links, put the new ones on, and moving up the front fork legs through the triple tree are also very easy. I think it's M6 Allen key. As long as you're just doing one leg at a time, you don't need to lift up the front of the bike. Make sure that you torque them down correctly. I think the top bolt was 19 foot-pounds and the bottom two were 17 foot-pounds. Since it's clamping against aluminum, you want to be careful that you're not doing that too hard. But as long as you're using the right tools, it was very straightforward. And again, a huge difference in my ability to enjoy the bike. The standover height now is about the same as it is on the XSR. As far as the kickstand, actually in the stock configuration, this bike seemed to lean over too much. Now raised up the 20mm, which I think is about 3/4 of an inch. It actually has the exact same lean angle as the XSR does, which is stock. So I don't have any concern about parking it. I mean, of course, if you're parking on a hill, make sure that the kickstand is facing down the hill, but otherwise, it's not a modification that requires additional tweaks like the kickstand, and I'm very happy with it. So anyway, just wanted to talk about those two modifications. Like I said, I've got the exhaust on order. I've got that adaptive headlight from Motocomposites on order. That thing looks really cool. And a couple of other small things. But I think this video series is going to be pretty quick because this is just me getting the bike to the way that I want it, and then I'm just going to enjoy it. But I've got a lot of other things that I'm building in the garage that I'll do in a much more series-like format. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and keep on building.